going on, DGen Nation? Kenny Kim here, bringing you another Fantasy Golf Degenerates podcast this week for the Rocket Mortgage. There we go. I remember this time. I remember. It took me a minute, but I remember this time. The Rocket Mortgage Classic, as usual. I am here with everybody's favorite Canadian, Tyler Tamboline. Tyler, what is up, my friend?
Oh, I couldn't love you more right now, Kenny. You know why? I'm very superstitious. If you remember last week's show, you forgot the opening, you forgot the course. I said it's going to be a good week. Got the Fantasy Golf World Championship, round 3 into round 2. So now you did it again. That must mean I'm going to Memphis, baby. So we'll see after this week, but excited to be here with you as always, man. We got a lot to talk about, so we're going to get right into it. Before we get into it, I want to remind everyone very quickly, this show is brought to you and presented by fantasynational.com. Head on over to fantasynational.com/FGD. Get yourself 20% off your first payment. Like I said, if you go annual, basically wraps you around all the majors, the whole year, everything like that. So check that out. Kenny, I don't know how you want to talk about this. Finau won, but yeah, he won. He definitely won. He did his thing. He closed it out. Piercy, just epic implosion at the end. I know he had the blister and all that talk the day before, but it was just bad for Scott Piercy after that shot. Poor him. But look, Finau has been deserving. He's been on the other side of this plenty of times. He definitely played well. I'm not giving the guy shit. I love Finau. It's hard not to love him, especially as a human being, just the way he talks about it and off the course and everything. He's so fun. Great attitude. But what were your thoughts on the 3M Open last week?
Yeah, I mean, Finau shot 66 on Sunday to get the win. It should have been 64. The guy, I don't know why, he got lucky as hell on 17 and 18. I'll tell you that right now. 17, that ball not going in the water. I don't know how. I don't know how that ball didn't go in the water on 17. Gods are looking at him. 18, he breaks out the driver. He could have went 7-iron wedge. You know what I'm saying? And had a birdie putt. But he could have went 7-iron wedge and had a birdie putt if he wanted to. Instead, he breaks out the driver, hits it in the water again. Luckily, he was smart enough to lay up on his next shot and just play for the up and down for par, which, he missed. He got a bogey, but, he was up 4 strokes at that point in time. So it really didn't matter. Scott Piercy, at one point on the front 9, late in the front 9, he was 20 under par.
He was 5 up after 9, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah. I think he finished 13 or 14 under par. So he lost 6 or 7 strokes in the last 10 holes. With that triple on 14, that basically ruined his day, ended his chances right there. And Tony did his thing. Griot was up there, got a little lucky this week. Another winning week. Been having a bunch of those the last couple of months. Lots of winning weeks for me. I think I've only lost maybe like twice in the last couple of months, maybe 3 times. I'd say in the last like 10 weeks. It's been a pretty good run here recently. And I got lucky this past week, plain and simple, just pure luck. Because I didn't really have any GPP sweats, nothing really big with my cash lineup. Cash, but only 3 of 6 made the cut. 3 of my cash game cornerstones missed the cut, and I still cashed on a week where 4 of 6 or better in cash was 60% of the field. And in double ups, which I played, only 40% of the field win. And I got lucky because I had Finau and I had Griot in my cash lineup to go along with Bryce Garnett. Those are the only 3 guys that made the cut, and that was enough to easily cash, which is funny. Easily cash. It's still, that type of sweat isn't the funnest sweat. You know what I'm saying? Because it wasn't easy cash until, about the 13th hole when Piercy triple bogeyed and Finau and Griot went to 1 and 2 in the leaderboard. That type of sweat, not that fun because, if I lose that sweat, I'm losing for the whole week, no doubt. So cash game sweats are the funnest thing to deal with. But it worked out for me. Good week, solid week. I know you had a Fantasy Golf World Championship lineup advanced to the 150. I think it was 69th?
69th,
nice.
Baby. That's the good mojo going into next season. Very nice. Yeah. And you talked about, it's funny you just mentioned that because that's the whole thing about round 1, right? It's a cash game. It's the top 150 teams of 300 move on. I don't know how people play cash. It was the absolute most stressful week. Just even getting it. I was like, after day 1, I was like, if I even get 1 through, I'll be happy. Day 2 came around. I was like, it's not looking good in the morning. And then it just flipped. And all of a sudden, like the last minute little things almost even got Laird to the house. I had Laird on the lineup where it was like, if I can just get him, I'll be 6 of 6 and locked in. He did not get through on the line. He missed an 11-footer and a 12-footer at 17, 18, but that sweat was not fun to get it to the 5 of 6. I had some leverage built in, so it turned out okay. Didn't play all the chalk. Instead of Svensson Steele that everybody played, I flipped it to Todd and Laird, which it's not ideal on paper, but I know you need a little bit of leverage in those spots. But just going back to this for 1 second, this tournament too, like down the stretch, you talked about it. I just thought about this right now. Finau on 17, not only did that thing almost zip back into the water, and then you mentioned the driver on 18. Now, the driver thing I'm okay with because he was up so much, it didn't matter. If you guys remember last year, Cam Champ also pulled driver up, and it was like he went wide left. It wasn't the water, but it was very easy. Click it out, click it up on, make par and win. Like he could have made bogey. It didn't matter. And so that's fine. But if Finau had went in that water on 17 and still did driver and all that, and then, Kenny, you tie it back to, did you watch any of or track any of Sung J M? Because I had him, and a lot of people were sweating him big time in the Fantasy Golf World Championship round 3, or round 1, if you will, I guess, like try and get through to round 2. And on 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14, you can go check the stats. The first 5 holes of the back 9, he missed from 5 feet, 8 feet, 8 feet, 10 feet, 11 feet. That was the first 5 missed putts. Lost like almost a stroke on every hole because of that. So it was like, man, this guy is just killing. And he only ended up losing by 3. So it could have been another Sung J MW, and it just didn't end up happening. Good for Finau, like I said, but crazy event. Otherwise, it wasn't really like, it's what we expected from the 3M Open. It's a decent field, had some names up there that we know, but nothing that exciting for me otherwise. So I didn't get a lot out of it personally.
Yeah, it was weird. The pricing was strange. Pricing very similar to this week.
Yeah.
And the way it happened was like 3 guys over 10K. I ended up by the end of the week just being like, forget it. I'm just going to start all my lineups with one of these 3 guys. I had 33% Finau in GPPs, even though I had them in cash. That's a rarity. Very, very rare. I just felt like these 3 guys were, and of course I had Decky, so I had 30% Decky too. So
the WD on him, I forgot about that, but that killed me on the tournament scene for sure. Couldn't play him in the World Championship, but I was like, everything else, I was fine with taking a risk on him. It just did not. I was so bad actually. Like I don't know what happened, and they said that he was out. So WD of course, but yeah, the pricing is similar this week. Only 9 guys. We'll get to it obviously, but 9 guys above 9K. So I think it was 7 last week, which was even less, but we'll see. And who knows if there's a WD or anything waiting still to come out. There's been a lot of changes to the field already. We'll see. But, the field feels better this week. Like I like it. And I feel like there's more of a mid-range here, right? We go back to it. Like last week was Finau, Hideki drop off. I kept comparing it to a little bit, at least to the Canadian Open. And I should have followed that strategy. You should just note this for just week to week basis, Kenny. But like last week, it was pretty clear that the 3 guys at the top, you mentioned it, you played at least one of them. A lot of the guys, the best teams in the World Championship, just played 2 of them, played Finau and him together and dropped down because there were so many guys in the 7K range that were values that were literally like 30 and 40 to 1 at the sports book. So it doesn't mean Vegas knows everything. The point was more that you could build very good lineups that way, and it just made a ton of sense. And then of course last week had Tommy Kim, old Ju Young Kim there at 7,300. Came out and got the job done for everybody. He was 60% owned in that. He was heavily owned elsewhere, and he made sure he got in the cut line and added 1 more for a bonus point on the last. Almost had 2 chip-in eagles, but ended up getting through. So good for him. I mean, he's back in the field. Will be a discussion piece later on at 7,600. But any other final thoughts for you from the 3 Open before we move on?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the leaderboard, it's pretty funny. You have Finau and M 1 and 2, and then Grillo tied. But then like Han, Hoagie, we thought about last week. I couldn't pull the trigger, but we definitely thought about it last week. I hope some of you guys did pull the trigger after talking about him. And then so we had what? Han, Hoagie, Piercy, Willett, Terrence, Sig, Hadley, Kraft, Malnati, Streb. You know what I'm saying? I think we see something similar this week. So you can see, and I sort of went that way with my cash game cornerstones this week and the way I'm going to go about my lineup. So we'll go and talk about that in a little bit. But before we get there, let's go ahead and talk about the Listener League winner. His name was Connor Stevens. I think a Daily Roto avatar. Is Daily Roto still around? I don't even know. Anyways, Connor Stevens was the winner of our Listener League. He'll be in the Tournament of Champions coming up real soon. Tam, we'll talk about that in a second. He had the winner, Tony Finau, 25% owned. Sung J M, so he went studs up top, 24% owned. Of course, finished in second, and he had Creo. so he had first, second, and second. Solid work. Creo was 10% owned. Troy Merritt made the cut, 49th place, 10% owned. Excuse me. Tom Kim, 28% owned, 26th place. And he went with Hoagie. he had the balls. Had the balls to go with Hoagie. Didn't have the balls to do it. Hoagie finished in fourth, 8.4%. Not bad. 9% on Hoagie. Pretty good right there comparatively, I think, to his ownership in regular tournaments and stuff like that. So solid work there, DGen Nation. Solid work, Connor Stevens. What'd you think of the lineup?
Yeah, I like this one. This is what we just talked about. If you just stop back to it, like those first three. So you knew Kim was a value. You plug him in. You go to the top and pick your two. Most people had question marks around Hideki. So you go Im and Finau, and you just fill it out with the three others. Now he picked the right three, so congrats to him. I'm just saying in general, that was where you could go with it. Like I think it was, I don't know if he left money here. I don't think by the way it sets up, but I think you could have played like Wyndham Clark in there and then drop it down to 7,000, like to Sig or Taryn. I can't remember their exact price, but that would have been about the only swap. But I did notice, shout out to Connor Stevens, got him in to the Tournament of Champions. I'll talk more on that in a second, and he'll be in the 3-man, but I did just notice the craziest thing. So back to the Fantasy Golf World Championship, Kenny, there was a massive, massive tie. So 135th to 151st, right? So a 16-way tie where one person gets booted on these crazy rules where it's like, they can't do it. They can't just give them an extra ticket. It's not fair to everyone else. So they had to have like a long list of how you got there. And without going through the whole list, it came down to the last person to qualify. And unfortunately, one of the gentlemen did not qualify until the Open last. So he was last, and it just is what it is. So he gets 151st place money, does not get in. It's how it shakes out. But I just noticed in looking at Connor Stevens' lineup, because he has Hoagie here, Hoagie went 67, 68, 66, 70. And you say, why does that matter, right? Insert Windhurst. Well, if he made the birdie on the last hole, which was a very short birdie, by the way, Hoagie missed a shorty on the very last hole. And it didn't even click to me at the time. Like I was thinking just what the birdie might be worth, but that was for a birdie and for the all 4 under 70 bonus, which is 5 more points. And I believe there was lineups behind that train that would have passed them. And a lot of those guys would be without seats because it would have went to the tiebreaker rule on a smaller number and pushed a bunch more out versus just the one bubble boy. So sorry for the bubble boy. Sorry for, happy for everybody else that got through it. Just a crazy thing sorry for those that Hoagie, but that's pretty crazy when you think about it. He was that shorty away from advancing some other people there. So maybe those listening who were paying attention now will know, but yeah, Tournament of Champions. I'll get into that real quick, Kenny. It's going to be FedEx St. Jude. I did this last week. We're skipping the Wyndham. So this week and next week will be your last 2 chances to qualify for it. We'll have all the prizes, everything to announce. We'll get it rolling at the FedEx St. Jude in Memphis, Tennessee. That's when the live final is as well. Hopefully I'll have my seat through, but either way, we'll be running it that week. So be ready for that. Last 2 weeks to qualify. And then it'll be the Lister League. Everything will just shut down till the fall swing or whatever. We'll just get it back when we go into that. But that'll be something to keep your eye on and keep on the lookout for. That's all I got, Kenny.
All right, that sounds good. Let's get to this week. Let's talk about the PGA Tour heads to Detroit, Michigan for the Rocket Mortgage Classic from the Detroit Golf Club. It's the 4th time this event has been played here, so we're starting to get a feel of how the course plays. The first 2 years, absolute birdie fest. Nate Lashley won by 6 strokes with a score of minus 25. In 2019, the course was wet and soft due to frequent rain leading into the event. And while the rough was still, 3.5, 4 inches, it didn't really stop people from breaking out the big stick off the tee. 2 years ago, Bryson and Wolf torched the course, and 11 golfers shot minus 15 or better. Last year, the wind was up, and the winner was still minus 18, and more than half the people that made the cut finished double-digit under par. And that's with like 25-mile-per-hour gusts like every day, all 4 days of the event. This week, probably looking like 20-mile-per-hour gusts on Thursday and Friday, but prime scoring conditions during the weekend, hot weather, lighter winds. There has been a fair amount of rain in Detroit this summer, and the weather looks a bit stormy this week, so wet conditions are in play, which should lead to many darts thrown onto the green, no matter from the fairway or the rough. Usually in these type of events, a hot putter gets the job done, so this causes a lot of volatility. Basically, this event is wide open, and long shots are definitely in play, especially when considering how short the course is. Personally, my betting card does not really match what I just said there, but we'll get to that in a second. Bombing definitely going to help you, but don't let the 7,300 yard length fool you. The par 4s only average around 420 yards in length, and the 2 shortest par 3s and par 5s short knockers with hot putters and a solid wedge game definitely in play. Detroit Golf Club is designed by Donald Ross, and as usual, trademarks of a Ross course, tree-lined fairways, numerous fairway bunkers in the tee shot landing zones, undulating fairways and greens, and a somewhat even blend of longish and shorter holes. The course is 7,300 plus yard, par 72 with 4 par 3s and 4 par 5s. 2 of the par 5s are around the 550-yard range and should be reached in 2 by most golfers in the field. The par 5 17th, a little bit longer, 580 yards, but still should be reachable in 2 with a strong drive. The par 5 4th hole is well over 600 yards and will probably be a 3-shot hole for most. 2 of the par 3s are on the shorter side and 2 are well over 200 yards. 7 of the par 4s range from 395 to 455. 2 range from 465 to 480, and 1 of the par 4s is close to 380 yards. With 4 par 5s and several longer par 4s, I'd expect to see driver pulled out on close to half the holes each round. The average distance off the tee here has been much higher than normal in normal tour events. Now, off the tee, golfers will see many straight holes, not too many dog legs, with average fairway width and fairway bunkers in the landing zones. The fairways have a bit of undulation in them, so many approaches will come with awkward stances, and if golfers miss the fairway off the tee, they'll have to deal with 3.5 to 4-inch rough and some trees. The rough hasn't led to tough scoring conditions, as the winning score the last 3 years, as I spoke before, was -25, -23, and -18. If golfers miss wildly with their driver, they could catch a break, as drives that miss the fairway by like 20 plus yards could land in fairways on other holes, leading to fairly easy iron shots over trees. Now, on approach shots, golfers see less than average size greens with bunkers surrounding most of them. The greens slope heavily from back to front. That's another Donald Ross staple, with a STIP meter rating of around 12.5. The majority of all approaches will be from inside 150 yards. So if you look at the wedge play here, like 125 to 150, 100 to 125, 75 to 100, all are more of those shots than a typical tour event happen at this course. Now, everything above it, like 175 to 200, 150 to 175, all of those are less than a normal tour event. So lots of wedges, lots of short irons at this course. The POA bent blended greens have heavy undulation, so it could be a tough putting week for some, depending on how difficult they make the pin locations. If you're looking for correlating courses, Sedgefield Country Club, which is where the Wyndham is, and East Lake, where the Tour Championship is, are the other 2 Donald Ross courses played every year. You might also want to look at TPC River Highlands, where they play the Travelers. It has the same bent POA blend type greens. Tambo, what are you looking for this week?
The scoring, you talked about it already. It seems to like not matter, like you mentioned, because it's last week, but without water in a sense, where they just put it out there, find their way around. I think one of the more interesting things to look at was just talking with another buddy about this pre-show. And I think it is an interesting angle is, of course, people are going to look at the par 5s here, right? Obviously there's 4 of them. We talk about that. That's where the scoring comes from. But one of the interesting notes is you talk so much about those wedges and the irons and stuff like that. And then, of course, putting is the elephant in the room. Here's the obvious. The high variance to this week is associated with the putting. It's because it's not the guys who putt the best get to the top. Not rocket science. I'm saying that it's not always the best putters that putt the best. That's where people have trouble with it. So looking into who's the best putter may or may not help you, but the best putters will be at the top. But with that said, par 3 scoring. So there is 4 par 3s. You talk about all those holes. Some of the par 5s even have longer shots in that, like you have to have it in 3. So I think these irons, these wedges, and then these shorter putts, the 5 to 10 footers. Well, anyone who scores well on par 3s is typically going to have all of those assets, right? They're going to have to be able to score that way. And so I think that's just another angle to take it from, or a way to approach this week. So I'll be looking a little bit more into that. In the end, Kenny, the pricing has been so interesting this week and last that I think it actually matters more than just like a cliche thing of saying like it's changed up. People always forget this, but we're playing a game against other people. Like we pick guys and I get all that stuff, but at the end of the day, we have to figure out what we're doing against the field in all the tournaments and cash games and things like that we're playing. What's everyone else doing? How can we beat them? And to me, the ownership, the roster construction, like last week, just thinking back, the Finau, Tom Kim situation, you just set up with those 3. It left you basically where you had to play 3 other 7K guys, or an 8K, a 7, and a 6. Like, there was ways to get there and build differently. My point is more, you kind of get the gist of what the roster construction is going to be. We'll talk through some of that here as we get to the tiers anyway, but it is a little bit more of a mid. There is, I should say, a little bit more of a mid-range here where I actually think there is guys in the 9K range, 8K range that can definitely go out and win this thing. So that to me changes the dynamic a little bit. And that will be something I consider heavily with ownership and roster construction this week.
Sounds good. Let's go. Should we go 10K and up or 9K and up, Tambo?
Let's do 9K and up again. I think it's 9,100 and up. They couldn't even get a guy at 9K this week. There's just no need to put him at that price.
All right, I'll go ahead and start. I got 2 of my cash game cornerstones, and I'm going 2 of my cash game cornerstones in the 10K range. I'm going, and the thing is, I don't even have to look at the stats. I don't even have to look at the numbers. These are sort of, I just feel like these 2 guys are due for a win. And it's not surprising. One of them is Will Zalatoris. Okay. I think a win is coming for him. And I'm just going to go ahead and put him in my cash lineup. I know there's some worry about how he plays in non-major events. I think that's a fluke. He has to go out there. He knows he needs a W. You know, I mean, he's got his card, but you know, he wants that W. He wants to get that monkey off his back. This field, this course seems like it could be something where he could do it, even though he finished 77th dead fucking last year. This course, I'm still not worried about it. I'm not looking at anything else but the feeling I have in my gut that these 2 guys are going to win. One of these 2 guys is going to win. And my second guy is Cantlay up top. I mean, if you look at Patrick, I think outside of the majors and the players, he has 1 start where he finished outside the top 10. 1.
Yeah.
1 start where he finished outside the top 10, but no wins this year. He's close. He's been close, and I think he's going to get a win. I actually bet him as the betting favorite. I never do that. I'm going to go ahead and do that this week. And, you know, I got him at 8-1 because I use DraftKings Sportsbook. There's better numbers. You could probably get him around 12-1 somewhere out there. But, yeah, I those 2 guys I'm starting with in my cash game, cornerstones. I'm going to play Finau. Tony matches up with everything I'm looking for this week. You know, lots of birdies off the tee is fine. Really good from 400 to 450. From 125 to 150, he's strong. And hopefully people, you know, go off of him for the winner thing where people win and don't play him again. You see that a little bit less nowadays in DFS because people are getting smarter. They know that, you know, it's not that simple. The thing is, you don't have to worry about Tony going out and partying and drinking and doing crazy shit. He was out doing the ducky with his kids in the minivan on the drive home. That was his celebration. You know what I'm saying? Last time he won, he went to fucking McDonald's. And I tried to, if you remember the last time he won, no Tony Finau challenge this week because he didn't say, he did not say what he ate after his meal, after his W.
Yeah,
that's true. Yet. But yeah, I got no problem. The one guy that interests me a lot is Homa because I think ownership wise, he's stuck between Cameron Young and Cam Davis. I love Cam Davis. I bet Cam Davis also 35-1. I'll take that bet on a guy who's been playing exceptionally well here recently and who won this event last year and whose game looks like it's suited for this course. I'm using Cam, but you know, Cameron Davis is who I'm using. You know, Young's going to be popular. I worry about Cameron Young's wedge game. Probably the weakest part of his game. I expect him to be exceptionally highly owned. He's probably going to be a fade for me. But I know that he's going to be high owned. I know Cam Davis is going to be high owned. Right in the middle is Homa. You know the guy can win. Still not sure if I'm going to go down and actually click his name. What do you think about Homa? Do you think he's going to be the lowest owned out of these top 6 guys?
I certainly hope so. I have a lot of love for Homa here. I just think it's one of those interesting cases where it's like it's not something you'll always put him into the mix with, right? You don't think about Homa and a birdie fest. You think about him at like Wells Fargo, at you know, when he won at the Genesis, the majors. He hasn't showed up in the past. But
6 and birdies are better game in the field in the last 50 rounds.
I got him on a lot here. I got him across the board. I do think because of these models and stuff, he will pick up steam. But I'm just saying, and you know, if you look back though, missed cut, 16th, 47th. Here only came 25th and 42nd. Like you think they won't go there. But the biggest thing that interests me, I just talked about, he's one of the best in par 3 scoring. He's one of the best from 5 to 10 feet with the putter. One of the best on par 5s, one of the best birdies or better, third on approach. This is all in the last 6 months. So just because it doesn't pan out in different ways, I think that, again, when you mention it, Cam Young, Willie Z, Cantlay, Cam Davis, there's some Adam Scott love, which we got to talk about him too. But there's definitely a lot of options here that people can go to. So I just don't think you can get enough on all of them. And we know some of the ones that will get a higher number. The Zalatoris thing is just never going to end for me here. But at the end of the day, Kenny, this is what I always say, like, everyone's like, oh, it's like a running joke now. Like, he actually can show up in these birdie fests. He's done well. And it's just a matter of this. What is true is if you look back at his numbers, I pulled them up here again. Like, if you go to the Amex, he came 6th. You go to Sanderson Farms, 14th, the Fortinet, 11th. The point is that all those, he's losing one. Well, at the Sanderson Farms, he actually gained with the putter, but at the Fortinet and the Amex, he lost about a stroke and a half. If he finds the putter, that's where it's going to dunk all over me. But I'm just saying at 10-4, that's what you're risking, right? And it's funny, if you go back to a lot of the easier courses, it's the same thing it's always been, is the putter. So I'm not saying to go off of him here. It's a first look like we always do. I'm going to take everything into consideration this week. Obviously, he's, I don't have any worry about him making a cut. I don't have any worry about it. Like, if he does find the putter being in the mix, it's how does he compare to what's around him when we just talked about Cantlay, going back to the well on Finau. Cam Young is right there, like you talked about. Cam Davis, defending champion. And then the one thing I wanted to talk about with Adam Scott on this first look is, we always said this, Kenny, like Adam Scott in the little bit weaker fields. Like, remember he showed up to Wyndham that time and he ended up missing the 5-footer and losing, like, he didn't even make
another Donald Ross course. Another Donald Ross course.
Yeah. But even after, if you want to, some people don't want to compare those. I would just say at the end of the day, same designer, but if you just more so strength of field, someone posted today, like, here's what Adam Scott plays in. And it's like 10 of the nut events, like the best events on tour. And then it's like he randomly picks these couple of one-offs and he typically shows up in the weaker strength of fields. And now this is a little bit stronger. It's stronger than last week for sure. But if you just look back, like, his stats still look pretty good across the board. Doesn't actually score that well in the par 3s for my earlier thoughts, but 15th at the Open, 14th at the US Open, 4th at the Genesis earlier this year. Like, you go back to that Wyndham when he came 2nd. It is interesting to look at it from that perspective. So did you have any interest in Adam Scott? And then what about Kisner and Bradley at the bottom? Because they're popping in the stats, and Kisner, I think people just always like, but what are your thoughts on those two down at the bottom?
I mean, the thing is, if I'm going to use Cantlay, Finau, Zalatoris, Homa, Davis, and Scott, I can't use anybody else. Yeah. So those are the 6 guys I'm going to use up top in my 60 lineups. Now, how I'm going to spread it out, I still haven't decided, but those 6 guys I'm going to use, and I have no problem using that. I think maybe like 25% Cantlay, 25% Finau, 20% Zalatoris, and maybe 30% Homa, 30% Davis, something like that, and then try and get my lineup generator to go ahead, hopefully be able to plug all those people in that I want. That's probably the way I am going to go about it.
Okay, real quick then, let me just say this, because I'm not going to skip ahead on purpose, but just to explain something quickly, because I think this is where we want to interject with roster construction, is like what you just said. It's so easy to build with 2 of those guys. We're coming off a week where we just saw that be the nuts, basically. If you just played the 2 at the top and dropped down. Now this week, not to skip out on purpose, like I said, but if you go down to the 7K range, Chris Kirk, Stallings, Tom Kim, Merritt, Steele could have flop leg, Pendrith, Vegas, Gotterup, CT Pan. I'm going to do a quick run through. Nick Hardy, Svensson, Clark, we'll talk about Gim, Luke List, Sig, few others, Hank Lebioda, like there's names down there. So my point is, I think it's very easy to build with what you talked about. Pick your 2 up there, even if it includes like a Davis with a Cantlay. Not saying it can't work. I'm saying if you think that it's that easy, and I just explained why it is, I would look at some of this and it segues us into the next range. But to me, Kenny, it says that the Scotts, the Bradleys, the Kisners, and then this 8K range we're about to go into pretty much have to be overlooked. Right? Like, you could go a 10K guy with 2 8Ks and 3 7s. I think that's unique too. But I think a lot of people will be able to fit a 10K, a 9K and skip the 8s, or be willing to go back to what you just talked about and play Cantlay, Zalatoris, and just drop down again. And maybe they play Cam Young instead or Homa instead. But you get what I'm saying with roster construction,
yeah,
right?
I think the way it's looking right now, if you go Keegan Bradley down to
Woodland.
Yeah, I mean, but the thing about it is, like, I feel like Sahith will get some steam. but that might be it in the 8K range. You know what I'm saying? Like, what do you think the 8K range? You think that could be a dead zone?
This week it feels like it because, like I said, with the 7K, it just worked last week. You can easily do it, and the 7K range is loaded. So I'm not saying don't do it. I'm saying
so. I mean, the thing is, what you can do if you want to think about it is go a little bit balanced, play more of these 8K guys, and it's definitely going to be unique.
I'm saying that I'm not saying I love all these guys, but just to point out, like Denny McCarthy, Mav McNeely, Thigala, Riley, and then you're looking at it like, okay, maybe that's where the win equity might be, but then you've got Tringali, Hadwin, Henley as some like second or third guy in value plays that definitely could work out for you. And who knows, they could get lucky and spike something. But I'm just saying, I don't think it's as much of a dead zone as last week was. Like what? Last week was Brendan Steele chalk at 8,300. Like that was just a value play. It wasn't really like the win equity last week was clearly at the top. Finau, Hideki, even with question marks on Hideki, you felt pretty good if you got two of those guys in and started there. This week, I think people will stick to that when I'm just saying, I think there is guys in this 8K range, like McNeely could get a win. Thigala could get his first win to me as much as who did you talk about earlier? Like Zalatoris or, Cam Young. They've played better in majors that outdo him, but this ain't a major. Maybe Thigala does spike and get his W here, like off of a bad week last week where everyone liked him. Now you go back at a cheaper price. He's down to 8,700. Davis Riley. To me, Davis Riley and Zalatoris, look, not in majors, but at this tournament, it's not a major. Could Davis Riley come out and get his first win at 40-1? I definitely think so. So I think there's opportunity.
Riley would be the first click for me in the 8K range. Let's go ahead and move on.
Yeah,
Riley would be the first click for me in the 8K range. I also like Webb. I feel like he's back healthy. I know he missed the last couple of cuts, but the price seems cheap for a guy. I don't think his career's over or anything like that. You know what I'm saying? The guy still has talent. He still has skill. He's still what? Top 15 in approach play in the last 50 rounds in this field. Lots of birdies. I can get down with Webb down here. And I think Hubbard will be popular. What are you going to do with Hubbard?
I don't know if he'll be popular because he's.
You don't think so?
Up. Well, I know the WD was for no reason. He basically gained his points. He got to 81st in the FedEx Cup. That's what his brother is the guy posting it on Twitter saying not so fast. He's about to WD, like letting the world know. So I think that, he's going to be fine and healthy. But again, like I said, how does he get super popular here? To me, will he be popular? Sure. But it's what people confuse, like what is actually chalk and like what's just a guy getting ownership. Everyone gets some sort of ownership. But when you look, Chris Kirk is right below him. Davis Riley, Hadwin. People will go back to Tringali. Don't forget his course history here, 14th, 30th, and 5th. So you got something like that. Thigala got a little cheaper. Mav, people like, and then you drop down all those guys in the 7K I mentioned. I just think he gets standard ownership. Like I don't see him getting super popular.
So Henley's probably going to be number one in everyone's model, right?
Henley?
What's up? Yeah,
where's he?
Where's he in your model?
I got him at 11th right now, but I'm weighing shit way differently. He'll be popular in models for sure.
I have him as number one. Now, the issue is his last three events were the three majors. What has he been doing? It's not like he had a win and he could chill and rest on his laurels. Like he's just been straight chillaxing this summer. He's only played in his last three events. He's played 3 events in 3 months.
Yeah, this could be though. Good point. I'm not to cut you off, but I think it's a great one you brought up here. Henley looks bad on everything else. What is it? Miscut at this course the one time he played it. 60-second miscut, 60th, 41st, not showing up anywhere. Does that remind you of anyone that was popping in a model last week that you talked about just a little while ago? Said we were on him, but we weren't. Who?
Hollywood
Hoagie was that guy last week. We all said it. We all saw it, but it was easy to just stick
and
with it.
No one played him.
I don't think I can do that. There's just so many other options. You won't need them, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, Henley's that guy.
96.5 DraftKings points later and a short birdie on 18. Away from all 4 under 70 to crack 100. It's just a prime example. Doesn't mean it'll happen, but you look, and like you said, those stats look pretty good.
He's by far the best wedge player, like from 100 to 150 in this field.
Yeah,
there's no one better, at least in the last 50 rounds.
Yeah, and he's middle of the pack for par 3 for my stuff, like just giving you an example. But for the other stuff, the short putting, the 5 to 10 footer is not so great. But that's something that's the whole point. He's such a good wedge player and he gains so many opportunities, so good on approach in general. Every single one of those, like from 75 to 150, he's 2nd, 30th, and 4th in all those buckets. So really just average it out, just say top 20 guy in the field in that, if not better. And so the point would be like if everyone's going to overlook it, I think that's something to remember on Wednesday when you see ownership and are building your lineups.
Yeah, let's go on to the 7K range. Why don't you go ahead?
We're real quick on the 8Ks just to give an idea right now, but I definitely, I'm interested in seeing ownership on Theegala, Riley, Tringali, all guys that people liked last week. All three guys, I believe all three guys missed the cut, right? Yeah. That's the other reason it's kind of a dead zone, because don't forget about casual players and people just coming in that say, oh, the guy missed the cut last week, he's not going to be good this week. Some of them, if you got to dig a little bit deeper, like Tringali, I'll give a quick thing on him. Good course history. So maybe he does get some flop leg with ownership even, but like last week, lost 2.5 strokes with the putter, solid everywhere else, gained almost half a stroke or more in every other category. Riley, if you go back and look, Davis Riley, what did he do? Nothing really, but round 2, almost like gained almost a stroke on approach, solid around the green, nothing with the putter, missed on the number, I believe, or very close to it. And then Theegala for the week was just not good, but plus, he shot 4 over. He could have been in the mix. He needed to do a little bit more, of course. So maybe like Riley, Tringali, Hadwin, Henley. Those are sort of the 4 that stand out to me right now. Did you have a take on Denny though at the top? Denny McPutts, if you will. Everyone loves that about him.
He's been playing really, really well. He had one of his better ball striking weeks last time he was out. If you can ever combine that ball striking and putting, the guy can win every week, right? With as good of a putter as he is. So I think he's going to gain some traction. I don't know if I can get in on it just because of the way I'm constructing my lineups with so many guys, with 6 guys like 9,400 and up, 9,300 and up. It's going to be tough for me to fit him in there, but we'll see.
Denny, I was just going to say, because what you mentioned, that's why I was curious, because he's got 6 of 7 made cuts, and 3 of his last 4 made the cut at all. 3 of them finished 6th, 7th, and 5th. Yeah. So 3 top 7s. And so
the form is there. It's hard for me to argue against it because even though his stats aren't like the best, his wedge plays not great. He's not really good off the tee. He's just been playing so well that, I can't argue against him. We'll see if he ends up in my pool, but I can't tell you not to play him.
And Hubbard's stats do look good. Again, if he does get popular, then so be it. Obviously, coming in off the 3rd and the 13th, I think he'll get some love. Like I said, it's more of the dead zone factor and the fact that the 7Ks will be very popular again, that it just may hold him in check, right? You may see 10 or 12% versus if people are thinking 15 to 20, 20% is a massive difference from 10, right? When you're looking at how you're setting it up. Let's move on though. We can go to the 7K range. What do you got in this upper 7K range, if you will? There's like 40 guys in here, so you can roll with what you got.
So for the upper, for the upper 7K range, Stalling is coming in hot, good form. We'll see how highly owned he is. It could be a pivot spot right there if he's going to be 20+% owned, which I don't know, it could be possible with his price, the way he's playing and his form. We'll have to see. So if you want to pivot off him, I sort of like Streelman. If you look at his recent numbers, they've been really, really good. In his last 12, if you look at Streelman, let me bring this up, 3rd in tee to green, in the field, ranked 5th in my model. So I'll go ahead and try a little bit of Streelman. Troy Merritt makes sense in a birdie fest, good course history. I like him in cash. He's not one of my cornerstones, but let's just say he could be in my cash lineup. Hint, hint, about that one. So yeah, I like Troy Merritt. Pendrith is interesting here. Again, another guy that has a talent, has a length off the tee, gets a ton of birdies done. I like Vegas in a birdie fest. I think he's going to go under owned. Not many people are going to use him. His stats don't look great at all. But we've seen him in birdie fest go out there and just crush. Maybe like 100 miles north, basically of where he is right now. Pretty close proximity for those 2 wins that he had, where he just birdied the hell out of the course in Canada for those 2 victories. Go ahead on this upper range.
Yeah, I think a couple guys you didn't talk about. So Siwoo, 7,900. I like him. Chris Kirk stands out at 7,800. I think he'll be the guy that gets, super popular. 12th, 21st here. Last couple of years, it's like 6 or 7 made cuts in a row. The price is right. The stats are there. He'll be popular. You have to make a decision on him. He could end up being though, like a $7,800 version of last week's Brendan Steele at 8,300, where he's not, you expect that he's not going to go out and win this thing, but he doesn't need to at this price. but then he doesn't actually come through on what you were hoping he would do, which is be that great value play for you at 7,800. So I would definitely keep an eye on that one. Stallings, the same reasoning. If you go down, Kim keeps coming through. I don't know how many more weeks we can do this with Tom Kim there. He's at 7,600 now. They refuse to bump his price. Like the guy on paper, the recent form has just been solid. Last week, even with the water out there, he was still finding his way around. Like I said, I know he made it, a little bit sweaty near the cut line, but it could have been sweat free. Like the guy almost chipped in a couple eagles. Like everything looked solid with his game. So he's interesting. Merritt, who you talked about, Steele. I like it. Like that's the thing about Steele, the flop leg there. Let me just go back to him while we're on here and look at it right quick. But Steele was another guy. So he missed the cut, obviously, right? As we know, but day one was solid, lost 4 strokes with the putter. Day 2, things went away completely, lost 2 strokes with the putter, but he could find that and come back. Obviously the water did not help, right? So you got that situation with him. Pendrith, who you talked about, very interesting. I bet him this week at 80-1, probably better numbers out there. But if you look, 13th at the Barbasol, but then even at the Barracuda, a little sneaky 11th. So I think he's fine. He's back. He's healthy. If you remember the week before the Barbasol, I liked him quite a bit that week. I wanted to be on him ahead of time. The Canadian beat writer, if you will, for golf basically had said he'd been out swinging. He was ready to go. And I was pumped for that because people weren't wanting to find out. And then he was the late withdrawal with the COVID positive test. So unfortunately didn't get to see it. People were like, oh, you're an idiot for playing him anyway. He wasn't even healthy. What do you do next week? 13th, now 11th. Like, you got to take chances on those guys sometimes if you believe in their talent. So I do like that. And then I think Vegas was the only other guy there before. Well, he's 74. So I'll let you take over 7,400 and down, but I definitely am with you on Vegas at 7,400.
Okay. Third cash game cornerstone is going to be Grayson Sig at 7,100. The guy's tee to green game and iron game has just been impeccable his last, 3 or 4 events. So I'm just going to try and ride that with him on a course very similar to last week where he finished 6th, except there's no water. Birdie Fest. When it comes down to it, the guy is I think he's a solid player, and I like the way his game is looking here recently, especially in his last 3 or 4 events. So I'll go ahead and take him as my third cash game cornerstone. I like Wyndham Clark a lot this week. I think he could bomb it out there. His wedge game has improved here in the last, I'd say, 3 or 4 events that he's played. Of course, his putting is always been one of the best parts of his game. And then you also include the fact that he's really good from 400 to 450 yards on par 4 efficiency. So I like Wyndham Clark. He might even be in my cash lineup this week. Not one of my cash game cornerstones, but he could be there. I'm going back to the well on Svensson. He still had a 25% birdie or better percentage last week. The only issue was he had a 25% bogey or worse percentage last week with 2 doubles and a triple. I don't think you're going to see those big numbers that we saw from him last week. And the man just, is a birdie machine. So I'm going back to Svensson down here. I like Harris English. I just think the talent at that price, we know the guy was one of the top players in the game just less than a year ago, went through injury. He should be back. He had a decent showing, I guess, a few weeks ago. It looks like he's healthy. At 7,300, I'm willing to take a risk on Harris English at that price. Callum Tarrant has been playing very, very good golf here recently. What about Michael Thorbjornsen, the darling from the U.S. Open, right? I feel like I have to play him. What about you?
Yeah, what was it? The Travelers, right? I think it was actually the Travelers when at the U.S. Open, fine, but I think wasn't it the Travelers when he showed up and just crushed?
I don't remember. I know it was at a major for one of them, right? I could be wrong.
Now you're gonna make me look it up because I have it up here anyway. But I thought that what's his Thor Bjornsson. Yeah, I'll pull it up while we go through it here. Michael Thorbjornsen, yeah, he was 4th at the Travelers. He gets 79th at the U.S. Open back in the day. Miscut at the U.S. Open. It was 4th at the Travelers. That's what I thought.
It was the Travelers.
When I started, Xander won it. He was up there. Hadley was up there, who you talked about. So
Travelers, same greens, same grass.
It is correct.
There you go. A little correlation there. Correlation.
So of note, Webb Simpson, Cantlay, Stallings, Kisner, Hadley, Thorbjornsen, Stigala, and that's it from sort of the top range. It was JT Poston and Xander to round it out. But I also like one guy that I saw there. He was down the list a little bit. I think he came, what was it? T8th, Nick Hardy and we're in this same range. I'm going back to him. He's down near now. We was 8,000 last week. He's dropped to 7,300.
Yeah.
Less trouble to get into here. Just
Yep.
a guy that can score like crazy. I think he makes perfect sense to go back to.
Alex
again.
Smalley interests you at all? He interests me.
Yep. I like him. I like Goddard again. Like I said, Goddard can score, man. Like it's just a matter of time. And so that's, him, Smalley, CT Pan is interesting. Hardy. Who else?
I think I'm in on Ricky this week. I got to play a lot of these 7K, low 7K guys, just because I'm going to be starting a lot of my lineups.
You'll be on
9,400. So I got to be on a lot of them. I think I'm in on Ricky. Again, wedge play, probably one of the better parts of his game. So give me a little bit of Rick and see if he can come back. I mean, he hasn't been playing, horrible out there. He's been making some cuts. I'll play a little bit of Ricky at that price.
Yeah, Gim, Clark, who you mentioned, Sig, all those guys look interesting. Patrick Rogers stands out as maybe a unique play down there. And then the other guy, funny that we bumped into the conversation around the guy at the top there with Henley being like Hoagie. But the other guy that I actually thought before we hopped on the show that was more like that is Luke List at 7,200. I'll be on with Mayo tomorrow, so we'll talk through Luke List. But Luke List really pops in the stats, 19th at the Travelers while losing a million strokes with the putter and still finished 19th. He shot 68, 68, 70, and then a 65 on the last day and just lost a ton of strokes with the putter. So just using that for fun. I'm just saying in general, though, when you look across the board, approach, opportunities gained, just off the tee, like he's got a game for a place like this and he can't get into a lot of trouble. We know he can score with the best of them at times. So I do think going back to a guy like Luke List would be pretty interesting as well. 7,000, nothing really right at 7,000. Maybe Shank, maybe back to Kazire popped a little bit last week. Not too many guys here though. Taryn definitely have interest in. You talked about him. I bet him at a big number. I don't think it exists anymore, but I got him at 140. We'll talk about bets in a little bit, but I liked what I saw last week from him. And then I think that's it for me here, Kenny. What do you got? Because I think the 6K range, that's the other note, is a lot more playable this week than what we had last week.
Yeah, and I'll start with my last cash game cornerstone in the 6K range. It's going to be Chesson Hadley. I mean, 3 top 10s in his last 5 events. The best form he's had in years. Okay. The strength of his iron game is not the best, but the strength of his iron game is his wedge play. He made the cut. He missed the cut the first 2 times he played here, but made the cut last year. So a little bit of improvement at least. And to get a guy who's finished, top 10, 3 of his last 5 events and still be able to play Cantlay and Zalatoris in my cash lineup. I mean, and have Hadley be my cheapest guy. I'll take that every freaking day of the week. So that's how I'm going to go about cash this week. My cash game cornerstones this week are going to be Patrick Cantlay at 10,700, Will Zalatoris at 10,400, Grayson Sig at 7,100, Chesson Hadley at 6,900. Still leaves you like 14,900, 14,800. Somewhere around there to fill out the rest of your lineup. Plenty of cash to fill out the rest of your lineup. And I already mentioned who I filled it out with. So you guys know my cash lineup for the week. Other guys that interest me in this 6K range, Lee Hodges, very, very talented golfer. A good finish here last week. I like him a lot. I think the talent is there. I think you'll see more of him as he matures and gets better. You'll see him rise up through the leaderboards, on a weekly basis. So I do like him a lot. Other guys, Matt Wallace interests me here a little bit, who's playing a little bit better. Had a good finish here in the past. Other guys, give me a second. I know I had some down here. There was one, Chase Seifert. Is a guy that I like this week because his wedge play extremely solid. Not many people are going to be using top 25 in both 100 to 125 and 120, proximity from 100 to 125, 125 to 150 in this field in the last 50 rounds. I'll go ahead and take that as 6,500 golfer every day when wedge play is going to be so incredibly important. So I like Chase Seifert at 6,400, and Andrew Novak, another guy whose wedge play definitely one of his strengths. Has had some decent finishes here recently, cheap 6,400. And then also, if you're going to go down a little bit more, I guess my last little flyer might be Camilo Villegas. I mean, his game is not great, but again, the strength of his game is the wedge play. He's second from 100 to 125 last 50 rounds, and 16th from 125 to 150 last 50 rounds in this field. Well, who do you like in the 6K?
Yeah, I think this range is where you're just taking shots on the scoring, right? The upside, hoping to get that positive variance when it comes to the putter and find guys that can go low. And I think there's a lot of them here. If you just start like Brandon Wu, a guy that we've been following for a little while, he can go low. Just to name a bunch right quick, like JJ Spawn, I think he's interesting. Steven Yeager, he's interesting. Like you can go through some others. Taylor Moore pops up. He's a guy that can go low. And then just going down through, I like Bramlett last week. Go back to him. Who else is down here in this range? I was going to say the 2 or 3 others, Kenny, that would stand out just from like the numbers will show it. And I don't know if it will actually bear out or if it'll be a real thing, but like Seb Straka, Johnny Huh, Lee Hodges, and one more guy, Russell Knox. Those are the 4, even though I don't think about them in that previous manner, like I talked about. And, Seb Straka hasn't played well forever, but he actually has a good course history here, 8th and 11th with a missed cut. But just looking at that stuff, it's like Nate Lashley too, of course, former winner. I should have mentioned him. There's like 10 to 12 guys down here that you could consider right out of the gate. I'm sure you can deep dive and find even more. I just think right now, that's the way I would look at it. Like, how many of these guys would you play? 2 at most? In
one lineup or overall?
One lineup.
Oh yeah. 2 at most. Yeah. Okay. 2. I'll probably rarely have that. Last week, I think I only played like 3 guys in the 6K range. This week will be a little bit more. But maybe 6 guys total, 7 guys total.
Yeah, I should note, just even from my first look, I can tell you already, like as much as these guys, in my opinion, are more playable than last week, I still think there's a scenario. I talked about this last week, and Piercy, of course, the only guy that really came through from the 6K range at 6,900. So maybe you do the same for this week. But I did talk on the Wednesday show with Mayo last week saying like, I could see just fading the entire 6K range. And sure enough, the 7K range was just a print fest. Everybody scored, went off, made those 2 guys at the top work. Here we already talked about where we have a decent mid-range that I don't know if you just, no matter how much you love these guys, I don't know if you need to go down here. And if you were, again, go to 6,800 if you want and make some picks, 67 if you love a guy. But I think I counted 91, Kenny, and then there's still all the Q guys were back. Like Nagel is back in again. Chris Nagel, who's like every week qualifier, but I think there's going to be 96 guys in this 6K range, 95 maybe because Michael Kim WD'd. But either way, if you can cross off 100 golfers, give or take, right out of the gate, I don't think you're hurting yourself because we named a bunch of guys in the 7K range and talked about a couple or 2 or 3 different roster constructions that do not involve even requiring this range. So I don't know, take your pick from there. Those are some of the guys I like if you were to dip down, but anything else you got for the 6K range?
No, man, let's go to bets. So for this week, my betting card right now, as it stands, I bet Cantlay 8-1. It's not the greatest number. Like I said, I use DraftKings Sports, but you could probably get them 11, 12-1 at other places. But I'm going to go ahead. I use DraftKings. That's what I use. I should probably shop around a little bit more, but that's just the way it is. I'm going to go ahead and use Cantlay 8-1. I'm going to play Cameron Davis 35-1. And then the rest are basically all bombs. Vegas 100-1. Callum Tarrant 130-1. Harris English 130-1. Chesson Hadley 180-1.
There you go. Your card's perfect for what you like this week. So that's awesome because you're getting some good numbers there too. I know that Tarrant already went down. I got him at 140, but I'll go through mine quick. I bet Adam Scott 33. Like we said, I gotta go with the strength of field conversation that we talked about in the past. I think it is interesting. Again, it's stronger than your average, but it's not really, maybe not than your average. I shouldn't say that. It's stronger than last week or what we're used to seeing this time of year, swing season and whatnot. But I still think it's a weak enough field that he could show up. Riley at 40. Like I said, Riley and Gotterup. I got both these guys 40 and 75 on Gotterup. That I'm just betting them because I still think the number's big enough, and it would not surprise me to get their first win as equal to the guys that we talked about at the top. That obviously they played better at majors, but again, it's not a major, so I'm okay with these guys finding their way through and getting the job done, like Cam Davis did last year, for example. Pendrith 80-1. Taryn 140-1. That's all I got for right now, Kenny. 5 bets total. I'm definitely going to get in on the first round leaders, wait on the weather, see what we got going on. As of right now, the weather looks like little bit of rain on Wednesday, maybe soften it up for Thursday morning. wins a little later, but again, that can all change. So we'll have to wait and see. But for first round leader, I typically like the guys going out early anyway, unless there's crazy winds or crazy weather against them.
All right, for one and done, I'm thinking Homa, Cam Davis, or Wyndham Clark. I like Wyndham Clark a lot this week.
Go with Wyndham the week before the Wyndham. I'm thinking delete my account, probably never play it again because I'm absolutely horrible at it. It is the worst. To me, it's the hardest game. I can never figure it out. I get the strategy. Like right now, I don't think it matters the picks. I think it matters you need to know how you set yourself up for the end of the season. Like I understand the strategy. I can never execute. I can never find the winners. When it comes to one and done, it's much easier for me to put lineups together, figure out how people are building and try and leverage up that way than it is to try and figure out a one and done. But I'll take tips. If anybody has any, not the money kind, I'm saying, give me the one and done tips. Happy to learn. Hit me up in the DMs on Twitter, anything. Cause I need to get better for next year, Kenny. It's atrocious every year.
Yeah. I mean, I've been in the money a couple times, so I'm actually not bad at it. I think right now I'm still in the top 75 or something in the Carbon Cup. So I still have a chance in the Carbon Contest. So we'll have to see how that goes. It's just last week I used Finau the wrong week.
Yeah.
Because I used Finau 2 weeks ago. And then I used Hadwin last week. I should have probably flipped it around and done something like that. But anyways, all right. So you can find me on Twitter at KendoVT. You can find my article on gupscorner.com. Use promo code Kenny. Save 30% on a membership. It includes all sports. Football's gearing up. Those guys over at Gups Corner, they know what they're doing for football. Lots of winners this past week for golf. NASCAR's kicking ass. MMA doing their thing. We got all the sports down there. It's all included. So go ahead. They got tools. They got the green machine, the lineup generator, some crazy. Gup does the hot and cold for like weather positions, like where their tee time is compared to what he expect the weather is, and he lays out a color code. Green is all in. They're in the best time. Goes all the way to red, where in the worst time. Really, really good stuff for wave stacks and stuff like that, where you know the weather is going to get involved. So go check out gupscorner.com.
And you can find me on Twitter at Totag and Tambo. Like I said, hit me up there if you guys have any questions. Put the tidbits out every Wednesday, just the full thread of 10 to 15, depending on the week, what I find of the most interesting things across the industry for free content. You can check it out there. Of course, runpuresports.com. Talk about it every week. Head on over there. Promo code DGEN50, DEGEN50. Get yourself set up. All sports, one price in the Discord. We're going through it, but the Wednesday show there for golf, especially right now, is the most important. We're talking roster construction with final ownership, with the setup, basically setting up how it plays out for the week and what the best angle to take is. We have some really big weeks over there, so check us out for that. Other than that, I'll be on the Mayo live show chat tomorrow. We're doing it early this week. I might even be announcing it before he is, but that's fine. Got to get it out there. It'll be tomorrow at 12:30 Eastern is when we're doing it. So he's going away after that on Wednesday. So next week will be a little bit earlier, but we'll have a lot more data. I'll have the first run of ownership projections. I'll have a lot more conversation there around some of the stuff with roster construction and things that we were talking about here tonight. So looking forward to this week, Kenny. We're getting down to the end of it, but for the Fantasy Golf World Championship, trying to get in the top 40 of 150. So hopefully get the job done and can go down to Memphis, Tennessee with a ticket in hand for a 1-in-40 shot at $1 million.
Hey, good luck there, brother. All right, so we're headed up to 8 Mile. Rabbit doing his thing on the mic. Hopefully my golfers doing their thing on the course. Let's win some motherfucking money. DJ Nation.
I've been getting dirty money, Jordan Belfort. Stacking penny stocks while I'm flipping these birds.